Aloha, and welcome to SUP FM, the podcast for stand-up paddleboarders everywhere. So with no further ado, let's get out on the water and on with the show. Here are your hosts, Nick and Simon.
Well, good afternoon, Simon. It's a really hot afternoon in Portugal here, and I'm playing with my iced tea, trying to make it sound really well. We've got Sian Sykes on today. How did you get in touch with Sian Sykes?
Well, it was very difficult. Sian is the go-to media person for stand-up paddleboarding in the UK and has appeared on all the major networks. And part of that's down to the fact that she runs a school in a beautiful part of the world, North Wales. And if you check out her psychedpaddleboarding.com site, she's got some fantastic video of the wonderful mountains and lakes where she paddles. So it was great to have her on. We talked mostly about a monstrous trip she did. She circumnavigated Wales, and for those of you who know Wales,
all the way around.
And for those of you who know Wales, know that one side of it's landlocked, so you'd think that'd be a bit of a challenge, but there are a lot of canals and waterways. So she split the trip into two areas. One was the coast, which can be very, very wild and very, very busy. And the other side was the canals and the waterways. And she's got all sorts of affiliations with all sorts of organisations, including Surfers Against Sewage. So she did some cleanups on her way round and engaged lots of local schools. So we talk about all of that during the episode. Sian is an absolute case study on how to run expeditions. She's done this professionally in her past, and what struck me from the conversation was the amazing amounts of organisation, to the point that she was on first name terms with the Coast Guard crew, who celebrated just as loudly when she completed her circumnavigation as anyone else. And of course the media was there to welcome her back. So it's a really, really lovely interview with the very brilliant Sian Sykes. Today I'm talking to Sian Sykes. Now, Sian is the inspirational owner of Psyched Paddleboarding, which is based in beautiful North Wales. And she doesn't only offer SUP adventures and tuition, but she's also an adventurer in her own right, which we'll be talking about a little later on. And she's also a prominent campaigner working with organisations like Surfers Against Sewage to eliminate single-use plastics, which, as we all know, anyone who's been out on the water, on the coastline or the river, seen the pollution that comes from these plastics and is a huge killer of wildlife. Sian, it's great to have you on SUP FM.
Thank you, Simon, for inviting me.
One of the questions I tend to ask people on the podcast is just tell us a little bit about your first experience on a paddleboard.
Gosh, it seems like a long time ago. I was really fortunate to be asked by some friends to join them on a little journey, a trip to cross England on stand-up paddleboards. And I thought, why not? I fancy a holiday, I fancy an adventure. And it was a really wonderful experience to just jump on a board. And, once you've mastered the basics, it was a wonderful way to journey. And for me, from a very early age, I had a fascination with water. But I was always fearful of being trapped underwater. So, sea kayaking kind of put me off of not feeling confident to do rolls and things like that. So with paddleboarding, it was amazing because, it was a wonderful journey. Bird's eye view and really close to the water, and be able to go on an expedition. And I absolutely fell in love with it.
Your career took you into the wilds of London, didn't it? And now you're in North Wales. How did that transition take place?
Gosh, it feels like a long time. I was in the corporate world in advertising, and I was working in Manchester and London. I absolutely loved my job. I loved the challenge, but it was incredibly fast-paced. And I was just surrounded by buildings, no open space. And I suppose I'd call it, I had an early midlife crisis, I'd like to call it. And when I visited friends and family back home in North Wales, I found it harder to leave at the weekends or on a Monday morning to go back to London. And I guess something kind of shifted, that I wanted to change my career. I wanted to do something a bit more fulfilling. I mean, I loved my job before, but I wanted to just really feel more fulfilled. And when I was outside, when I was connected with nature, I would just sparkle and shine. And I discovered that you could make a career in the outdoors. So it felt like a no-brainer, really. So I made the transition to leave advertising and get into the wonderful joys of working in the great outdoors.
Wow, that's fabulous. And certainly anyone who's visited psychedpaddleboarding.com can see all those beautiful images of the area that you work in. Clearly, that was a big draw. Did you come from that area originally?
Actually, I was born in a place called Llangollen in North Wales, and my parents retired to Anglesey, and I absolutely fell in love with Anglesey because we're really fortunate. We've got stunning coastline, we've got breathtaking views of Snowdonia, and I'd love, it is the adventure capital, I'd say, of Wales. We've got it all, and it's a real joy, a real pleasure sharing what's on my doorstep with customers, and they absolutely love it. We've been fortunate to see phosphorescent in the water when we've been night paddling. We've seen seals, dolphins, porpoise. It's incredible up here.
I think, one of the things I'd like to talk to you about, so much to talk to you about, because I know that you've led expeditions and so on across the world, and you've done a couple of firsts. I think the first was your circumnavigation of Anglesey. That seems to me like that would have been quite a challenge, because the Menai Straits are quite notorious in terms of tides. Tell me a bit about that trip.
Gosh, it was a wonderful trip. I allocated 5 days to do the trip, and I had to set off when it wasn't perfect conditions. And so I made the strategy to launch on the Menai Strait, because when it's windy on Anglesey, Menai Strait provides a bit of shelter. And I think it was a force 9, and it was incredible. So it was awesome downwind on the Menai Strait, and you're right, Simon. The Menai Strait is very complex water. You need to really be mindful and considerate about understanding the tide, and there's whirlpools which make it exciting. And it was a really great trip, and it was the basis for going around Wales. And I was on a 10.8 inflatable paddleboard, which looking back just seemed crazy, but it was really exciting. And it was the first opportunity which I did to go around the awesome North and South Stack, which is so iconic on Anglesey. There's a tidal race, which is exhilarating, and you need to be really knowledgeable of that area, and to be really hot with understanding about your tides. And I loved it, and it was the first time I started to pick up some big distances on the water. And it was a really fun trip, and I learned a lot about myself. I've learned that I am an ox. I can keep on going and going. I'm very mentally strong, and that set me up for my bigger trip, which I did a few years later.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it's all learning, it's all time on the paddleboard, it's all sort of testing things out. But your circumnavigation of Wales was, by all standards, absolutely spectacular. Not least that when most people look at Wales on the map, they think, how on earth can you circumnavigate that on a paddleboard? But the first bit you did down all of the inland waterways, didn't you? Just tell me a bit about, first of all, coming up with that idea. When did that idea come to mind?
Gosh, I can't remember when I had that light bulb moment, but it was playing on my mind that, obviously I'd done Anglesey where I live, and it seemed like Wales was the next one up, really, and it coincided with my strong ethos about inspiring people about the waterways and how we need to protect it and to reduce our single-use plastic footprint. And with hatching the plan for Wales, I thought it combined it all, because I wanted to show people from urban areas that what gets dropped in those areas finds a water source and then ends up on our beautiful beaches. And, sadly, 150 plastic bottles are found per mile of a UK beach, which is frightening. So I wanted to highlight this big trip on a national scale by linking in all the waterways. And you're right, I started off inland, and I was fortunate that I did the rivers and the canals, and then I jumped along then onto the Welsh coastline. So it was a proper circumnavigation. And in those sections of being on the river and the canal and sea, it was an opportunity for me to highlight what I was finding, the single-use plastic bottles, engaging with the community to get involved, and also getting people involved with making a pledge to reduce their single-use plastic consumption.
Doing that distance anyway is quite a challenge, but trying to, juggle obviously clearing up as you go and engaging with people is a massive challenge. How did you find the engagement as you went down? Did you get much interest as you were sort of hitting that land side of Wales?
I did, and it was really interesting because obviously when I set off on my challenge, it was solo and supported, and as a female paddler, I just didn't know what to expect. And when I was on the waterways, it was really lovely that on the canals there's a really wonderful network of such kind, supportive boat people on the barges, and they were really keen to get involved. They were thrilled what I was doing, because it was almost, they felt I was taking their concerns, their worries, but highlighting it on a larger scale for everybody else to know their worries and concerns. And it was almost like I was their voice, and they were thrilled and they wanted to hear all about my trip. They got involved by picking up single-use plastic bottles along their stretch where their barge is based, and they all contributed with giving me their pledges against single-use plastic. So some would say that they'd swap from shampoo bottles in plastic to shampoo bars, and it was really encouraging on the canals just to have that buy-in from people, that they were really excited with what I was planning to do, and they thought it was a great way and a great message to share.
Absolutely. And I suppose on the canals there is that ownership from the people that live on those boats. In my experience, I've done harbour cleanups and more river cleanups than canals, but that there is a depressing amount of waste that people just throw into rivers. Did you find that the rivers were worse than the canals, or did you find them sort of more or less similar in terms of volumes?
I would say I found rivers more. There was a tide of single-use plastics along the River Severn, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. And no wonder it's ending up out on the coast. And I'm very grateful for, like you, Simon, getting involved with doing litter picks, and it's wonderful with the SUP community how people are wanting to protect their waterways, and great to see. And what we need to do is shift from a whole single-use convenience society and break down our reliance on them, and have legislation in place where manufacturers, retailers will change. But we need to change our behaviour, that we remove ourselves from such a convenience society. But as quite rightly so, it's a real joy to see people are passionate about the waterways. But it was alarming the amount I saw, and within a short space of time, I filled up a 90-litre bag full of bottles. And when I was on the water, I went out in the spring March, and everything was in flood. So there was so much plastic. It was unreal. It was heartbreaking to see, but I was really pleased that I jumped off my board and picked up the plastic bottles, because at least it stopped it entering out into the oceans. And that was, my key mindset at the start, that I wanted to do as much as I could each day.
I think a lot of the paddle community are very aware, and certainly there are a huge amount of activity on beach cleans and river cleans and so on. But for single-use plastics, what sort of commitments did you get from people? What are your sort of tips to minimise your use of single-use plastics?
That's a good question, Simon. So I know it's a bit of a minefield out there, and I think what my recommendation is, make a small change. Don't feel overwhelmed, and that small change can lead to more positive changes. The culprits which Surfers Against Sewage are targeting are, for example, single-use plastic water bottles, plastic straws, plastic sachets, plastic cutlery, those kind of things. And you can make easy switches. So you can change from a single-use plastic bottle to a reusable bottle. And there's so many wonderful people out there who are offering refill schemes. So they sign up for an app called Refill, and you can see on the app where you can refill your water bottle. And it's so simple. And you're stopping buying lots of plastic unnecessary bottles. Reusable coffee cups, and there's a lot of incentives now in takeaway coffee houses where they give you a discount for taking a reusable, which is great. And taking reusable containers, so if you're going for your takeaway, you can take it there, or if you're having chips, for example, a takeaway, just get them to wrap it up in paper and ditch, don't have the polystyrene. So those are quick changes, and also stop using single-use plastic bags, reusable bags, and you can go further. So I really minimise any single-use plastics, and so I use shampoo bars. I make my own deodorant. I've started to make my own facial creams, my own sun cream, because I'm using all natural products, and I can put them in non-single-use plastic, or if I have got any left over, I can just reuse the container.
Wow. Yeah. And as you say, it's all about awareness, isn't it? Because, certainly I have for years just use this single-use plastics, I guess, because I've considered that there aren't alternatives, but there certainly seems to be general pressure and a real momentum at the moment. So, fantastic work that you've been doing, particularly during this trip, but, since then, in order to bring people along with you on this single-use plastic avoidance.
Yeah, thank you. As you know, it's a big passion of mine, and it is about raising awareness, but inspiring people. And there's a lot of people, when I talk to them, that they feel guilty for buying stuff in single-use plastics, but they feel like they have got no other choice from the manufacturers and retailers. And this is why I'm working very closely with the Welsh Government, because today is actually the day of submitting all your thoughts about their circular economy strategy, because they want to be a zero waste country, which is amazing. And it's so good to see, governments really taking this on board seriously. And my big thing is, we do need to switch our relationship with being a single-use society, and we need to reuse, repair, and question, actually, do we really need this item?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we speak right in the middle of the lockdown, where I think people are thinking a lot more about, the way that they live their lives. The instant society is it's not fulfilling, and it's not good for us either. So, I think, absolutely essential. And Surfers Against Sewage, clearly they've got organisations working regionally, and down where I am near the New Forest on the south coast, we've got a plastic-free Lymington, and some of the stuff that we've managed to clear up from the harbour is just unbelievable, and actually risky, not just to wildlife, but also to stand-up paddleboarders out there. So full kudos for you for all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Just sort of coming back, just to finish off the trip. I know you're an ambassador for Starboard, and we're not here to necessarily advertise brands, but I've also had a lot of contact with Starboard, and they certainly seem to be pushing forward on their environmental production of their boards and so on, using old fishing nets and so on. Is that part of your attraction to working with them?
Most definitely. When I was picking a brand for my business and also for my trip, it's my big focus, and it was lovely, the synergy between us, because we shared the same values about the environment. Starboard are very keen to inspire, raise awareness, educate, but also they're trying to minimise their impact too. So, for example, the bags are made from recycled plastic bottles, or they provide litter pick hooks. They use plant-based resin. Their packaging is paper and cardboard, and they put money into a tax pot. So for every board you're buying, that in fact turns into organised beach cleans of removing about 200 bags of rubbish off the beaches. And also, for every board you buy, they plant a mangrove tree. And so for me, in terms of all the brands out there, they really inspired me, and I was very excited to have a partnership with them. And for a brand, I think that's fantastic, because we're all, each and every one of us, are responsible with the decisions we make. And it's great to see a brand taking it on board and reducing the amount of impact they have on the environment, and to inspire all their paddlers too.
One of the things that made me fall in love with stand-up paddling is, a certain ethos, which we try and embody as part of this podcast, which is, it's not about elitism. It's all about enjoying nature, getting out there in whatever form, and environmental responsibility is absolutely key. Getting out there in nature is one of the key attractions. It's great for mental health as well as physically. So, Starboard have certainly made massive contribution there, and hopefully they're setting the standard for other SUP manufacturers as well. But just coming back to your trip in around Wales, and I'm contractually obliged to ask these questions. Hairiest moment?
Hairiest moment was finding out at the last minute there was a private firing range on the Severn, because I'd done all my research and I knew about the MOD ones, but the scary one was speaking with them, finding out that they were firing, the flags were up, and I spoke to them and they said, well, you've got half an hour to get a wiggle on.
Oh my God.
Phone down, and I'm like, really? And the flags were flying. And I was really twitchy, because obviously the Severn is notorious. And and when I went past the last flag, literally I crossed it, and all I could hear was a thud, like poof. And I was like, seriously? I think they're all there watching with the binoculars. And so that was a bit quite interesting and scary. And then, sorry, can I add two, Simon?
Of course you can.
Big ships and tankers where you could actually see people on them. That was quite interesting, especially when, checking with the Port Authority that everything's okay, and suddenly this big ship, and you're like, whoa. And it's funny because I overheard on the comms that one tanker near sort of Cardiff way was like, oh, interesting, I've never seen one of those before, meaning a paddleboarder. And I'm glad they managed to spot me.
Well,
so
good.
yeah, that was quite interesting.
Blimey. So a couple of real hairy ones there. So headwinds obviously is a bit of a concern for any paddleboarders. What was your shortest mileage achieved on a particular day?
Gosh, I mean, there was some days, Simon, I couldn't get out on the water because it was such strong wind and wind against tide as well, and it just wasn't working in my favour. So there was sometimes, I think when I was trying to jump onto the Severn, I had to wait 5 days for the right opportunity. So there was some days where I managed to jump on the water, and there was, I think the shortest distance I travelled was like 12 kilometres. And I just thought, there's no point. I'm just going to exhaust myself, and I need to stretch, hydrate, refill, and get ready to smash out the miles. So my strategy was that when conditions weren't suitable, I wouldn't go out on the water. I would do litter pick, engage with the community, hydrate, stretch. And that's why I've been so fortunate. When I could get on the water, I was smashing out, 70 kilometres, and I didn't have any injuries throughout the trip, which is incredible.
How on earth did you manage that?
I think it was from stretching and, utilizing when Mother Nature, we're at the mercy of her. And, if it's not good conditions, we utilize that to the best opportunity for us to stretch and look after ourselves. And, I know some paddlers who get frustrated that they can't go out in conditions, but you've got to be respectful. And, when everything's in your favour, it's amazing that you're just flying along the water. It's just great. I love it.
It's fantastic when the wind's at your back.
Totally. And, there was an opportunity where there was a few times I was on spring tide and it was a tidal race. And I was on also 8 to 10 foot swell and I was loving it. I felt so invigorated and so, I just felt really powerful. I felt supercharged from getting all this energy from the water because, the one real joy with paddleboarding is that your whole body adapts, doesn't it? And you feel, and every micro movement you do, you alter. So when you're in invigorating, exhilarating experiences on the ocean, your body just adapts, and it just you feel so supercharged. It's amazing.
Yeah, you absolutely do. You feel part of the whole thing. For me, the early morning sort of dawn patrol, surf missions, and so on, getting down on the beach when it's dark, and then just watching the sun come up and the sparkle and so on. It's just, it's almost a sort of religious experience, isn't it?
Oh, it's just those magical moments, and that's why we love it. Just to take time out and just enjoy those lovely wild elements and feeling the sun on your face and just being immersed in water is lovely, isn't it?
Oh, just unbelievable. And wildlife encounters on the way past, I think round about, was it Abereron and Newquay and so on, that's known for, whales and dolphins and so on.
Yes, I'd been told by my friend Andy, who is part of WSA trainer, and he was saying, I'll join you on the water because there's loads of dolphins here. And, he is the dolphin whisperer of Newquay. And, we were fortunate I saw a couple, but literally when I left his patch, loads came out to play, and I was just like, yeah, I think I put them off, but I'm sure they might have been doing backflips behind me. But it was wonderful to see the dolphins, and I had the pleasure when I was around my home turf around Anglesey. There was a lovely tidal race and the sun was setting and everywhere was golden, and literally 5 porpoises were darting out of the water towards me, and it was incredible moment. And I'll never forget that. And seeing seals, inquisitive seals coming up towards me, and seeing puffins, which they're so cute, aren't they, in St. Bride's Bay. And it was just wonderful just to be immersed with nature, and it highlights, this is why we need to protect, their ocean for them, and that's why, I keep on doing what I'm doing, is just to keep protecting it.
And how did it feel like when you finished? I mean, clearly you had your guard of honour there of your porpoises, sort of piloting you back. But it was a 2-month journey. How did it finish when you finally put your paddle down after all that?
Gosh, Simon, it felt really surreal. I was camped out in Prestatyn the last night, and I had so many mixed emotions. Obviously, I was excited to see friends and family, but I felt really strong. And I love the simplicity of living out of 2 bags and being away for 2 months. And the film crew were there, ITV were there, BBC were there. And I had this this tremendous pressure I put on myself that I had to be there at a certain time so they could get this story, because obviously it was a big story. And when I got there, it was just really surreal. Suddenly, being on my own, suddenly lots of people on the shoreline cheering me on, and people brought me, because I don't drink, and people brought me ginger beer to celebrate, obviously in a glass bottle, and so I celebrated with a big bottle of ginger beer, and it was lovely to see my family and friends and the film crew. I had a wonderful welcome, but I felt so strong, Simon. To be honest, I didn't want to finish. I could have carried on. I wish I could have gone around Britain, but I needed to finish within the 2 months to get back to running, psyched, paddleboarding. But yeah, it was fabulous.
That sounds absolutely incredible trip. Obviously, all the tough times make that beautiful finish and those beautiful sunsets and sunrises really come alive. So what's next? I mean, I know that you're working on a book, and is there a film coming out?
Yeah, so it's been my first book. So if anybody has got any tips or recommendations, please get in touch. So yes, I'm busy during lockdown writing my book, because I thought it's a wonderful opportunity to use this downtime. And also it's a way of sort of processing that whole trip, because it was really big for me. Because obviously when I finished my trip, I went straight into a busy season. So it'd be nice to reflect back. And you're right, there's a film which is being just final edits to the film. I saw it the other day and it brought a tear to my eye. It's really good. So I hope your listeners will look forward to watching that. And at the moment, I've got a few personal projects lined up for paddleboarding. And then I'm in talks with people, because I'm wanting to do a bit of collaboration with people in different fields at the moment. So it's exciting times, actually, using this moment to pause and reset, that I've got this opportunity to kind of forge new links with people and hatch some plans. So watch this space.
Fantastic. That sounds incredibly intriguing. And in terms of the film, what's the distribution arrangements on that one? Is it going down a particular platform, or what are the plans, or haven't you got that far yet?
I'm discussing that at the moment with the film crew, what we could do. If not, after lockdown, we might do a big launch where people can come and see it, and then we'll find channels of distributing it. So yeah, just watch this space, really.
If you can't wait for the film, you did a fantastic webcast with, was it WSA?
Yes, that's it. Skills Academy.
With WSA, yeah. That's right. A fantastic account of your trip, and we've just basically teetered around the edges of it today. It was just an absolutely epic trip, and just made a huge amount of good in terms of generating interest around single-use plastics. So fabulous.
Thank you. Because as soon as I finished my trip, I got cracking with getting Anglesey plastic-free community status, and we, after 3 months solid working on it, I was thrilled that we were the first county in the UK to be awarded the Surfers Against Sewage award for being plastic-free. So it was fantastic how much changes we've made, how the momentum's picking up, but there's a lot more to be done, and hopefully your listeners will feel inspired to look what they use on a day-to-day basis and see what pledges they can make. So it'd be great to hear from them, what they're wanting to change.
Well, we'll certainly put that out there. I think these pledges, you ask for those throughout your trip, and it's all about these commitments which make a massive difference to change our habits and reduce single-use plastics. And while as individuals we feel that it's just, well, use a very poor metaphor, drop in the ocean, it actually makes a huge difference if we all take action together, which you've proved by the Welsh Government action and also the increasing momentum behind plastic free. So fabulous. Thank you so much for your time, Sian. A fantastic chat. Could you just remind us where to find out about you online?
Thank you, Simon, for wonderful chats and awesome questions. So if people want to find out more about me, you can reach me on my website, which is siansykes.com. I'm on social media as well. So if you feel inspired and want to discuss any trips you've got planned or about single-use plastics, then please do get in contact. And then also, if you feel inspired to join us on some awesome paddleboarding trips, we do night paddleboarding and expeditions. You can also reach us at psychedpaddleboarding.com too.
Thanks very much, Sian. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and hopefully we can speak again at some point in the future.
Thank you, Simon, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you on the water very soon.
Fantastic. Speak soon.
Thank you for listening to SUP FM, the #1 podcast for stand-up paddlers wherever you are. If you like what you've heard, please leave us a review on iTunes. Until then, we'll see you on the water.